Labor Talks, recorded at Chippewa Valley Community Television in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Hello, and welcome back to Labor Talks. I'm Lori Gruber, the host. Today's special guest is John Kaiser, who serves as the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Local 662. Welcome to Labor Talks, John.
Thank you very much for having me, Lori.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about John?
John became a union member back in 1973 for the International Brotherhood of Paper Workers, working for a local corrugated container manufacturer in the Waus area. My first Teamster job was in 1975 for a lumber distribution outfit in Wausau. And then after that, had a short stint owning my own equipment, running all over God's green earth here in the United States and Canada, which was great as a young man. And then 1981, coming back to another Teamster job as a chemical hauler, hauling hazardous materials throughout the United States. So 2000, I was 1999 actually, was elected to the executive board of Local 662. And March of 2000, I was hired as a business agent and organizer, and then since moved up to president. And so we're going on 16 years as an official of Local 662.
Big union.
Yes.
Teamster, as I understand it, Teamster 662 is a general Teamsters union. Can you explain the demographics of 662?
What we like to talk about in the Teamsters family is we represent people from airline pilots to zookeepers, meaning A to Z. And that's what our general union does. We have manufacturing, we have truck drivers, we have warehousing, we have public sector employees. So we really cover the whole gamut in labor, teachers, aides. I mean, we cover it all. So that's what a general union means, that we're not relegated to, as most people think of Teamsters, truck drivers. Or warehouse people. But we really are far greater that across this country, and we're ongoing, constantly organizing. Currently, we have national campaigns with organizing FedEx and Conway drivers.
About time with FedEx.
Yes, and of course the corporate entities that are fighting our efforts are tremendous. But nonetheless, we have a great organizing team out of Washington, and they help locals in each state that go out, but we're also organizing different airlines, different pilots, mechanics. We ourselves in our local, because we cover such a big jurisdiction in Wisconsin, we have cover 45 counties of 72 here in the state. And we just won a great organizing campaign last year at a dairy up in northeastern Wisconsin that's added 500 members to our local. So obviously, that's a great help to us with Act 10 depleting some of our public sector workers. We were able to organize a big dairy, which we have nationally. We have an association with this company, and we actually have 11 different contracts throughout the country and Canada with this company. So there's somewhat, I wouldn't say union friendly, but they're not anti-union.
Correct. And
that makes a big difference when you're organizing a group that has a union mentality and understands that it's a business. That's really what it's about. It's a business to represent hardworking men and women of this country.
I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, and there are a lot of big dairies that I would love to see brought over. They do tend to take care of their workers, but it's an even better way to take care of the workers is to get them unionized.
Absolutely.
John, we used to be in the same building here in town, and then Teamsters merged, Teamsters 75 merged with 662.
Correct. Local 662, of course, the original charter was here in Eau Claire. And like everything else, labor has merged. First, Local 563 in Appleton merged with Local 75 in Green Bay. They subsequently came over to us in 2007, and so we became the largest local in the state of Wisconsin, and one of the larger locals actually in the international. At one time, we were over 10,000 members.
Wow.
We're a little bit less than that right now with obviously Act 10.
Act 10.
But we're continuing to organize. Every one of our agents, we have 9 agents, including myself, that is our goal. That is our goal, to grow our union and to help members, to help potential members and educate members for a better way of living. And that's what we do. That's our message, is we try to raise, sort of float the boat higher. And quite frankly, in these times that we are experiencing, it is amazing that our phones don't ring right off the hook. Obviously, the cost of health care is a tremendous issue, and we have a fund that we represent, and we are able to supply great benefits to our members, and at a substantial cost savings. So that's huge, and that's the thing that people don't understand, is we're there to help the employers help themselves, so to speak, with their employees. And if we can offer cost savings both to the membership, we have also put the employer staff, in some cases, in our plan, because there's such great benefits at a cost savings. And so that's huge. So that's one of the things that we have to change and make people understand out there. We're not the enemy.
Right. Well, and we were talking about like the makeup of your union. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize is you've got Swiss Miss, you've got ConAgra Foods, that type of company, but then you also have the public employees.
Sure.
And in speaking about how has Act 10 affected?
It's actually been pretty devastating. We were one of the only unions that represent public employees that lowered the dues when Act 10 came about. Our executive board sat down and said, because the state and the governor took away literally all bargaining for all public sector employees, we said we have to make it more acceptable for them to maintain their union membership. So we had lowered our dues down to a substantially reduced amount, and it helped keep some members, because we were memorializing at least their base rates, so that the employer just can't come in and say, you know what, I think you're making too much, I want to take it away. When it's memorialized in a labor agreement signed by both the employer and the union, that's a legal binding document yet today. People don't understand that. So there's a value to being represented, even though you've lost your ability to negotiate anything outside of your base rate. And then you're held, which just absolutely grinds me, that we hold our union people to CPI, which at the first of the year is going to be 0.89, less than 1%. 0.89 is all that any union can negotiate that is represented. If you're non-represented, sky's the limit. So talk about, again, disparaging treatment. They are definitely holding unions to a different level. And so that needs to be looked at. And I think people are starting to realize that this has been such a destructive law. But I have a favorite saying, and our officials in the union, stupidity has to hurt. And if we continue to vote the people, including our union members that have voted some of these folks in,
exactly,
stupidity has to hurt. And it is starting to hurt.
For the first time, I've actually been on the other side as well, because I was elected as a village board member where I live. And those public employees there are members of your union.
Yes.
And you guys did save our village to like the amount of like 20 grand they saved us because of the health insurance plan. And we still have to combat 3/4 of the board where they're like, well, we're going to cut their hours. I said, you can't do that. They have a union contract. They just don't understand the things they can do. Yes, revenue sharing has hurt small communities, but we still need to take care of our employees. I've always been a big believer of we shouldn't be a training ground to train that person, so then they're going to turn around and go work somewhere else for better benefits and better pay.
That's correct.
So, have you seen anywhere where Act 10 has done anything good for us?
Nothing to where the taxpayers, they tout about taxpayers have seen reductions. Personally,
I haven't seen any.
I haven't seen any reduction. In fact, mine have gone up again last year, albeit slight. But I think the really destructive thing that nobody realizes is that these municipalities, especially small municipalities that you now represent, they are going to be left in a wake of destruction simply because there is no money to these towns and villages especially. And to get a referendum passed for more spending is almost impossible nowadays. I mean, your buildings literally have to be falling down before we want to spend money on our schools or our towns. And so many times I hear people say, well, geez, why isn't this being taken care of? Why? The more cuts that are being made, villages and municipalities are not replacing people when they retire.
Right.
And when that happens, what is going to be left? Even enforcement of several different, whether it's environmental or what have you. The more we cut, where are they going to cut from? It's at the bottom. It's the enforcement level.
And their big thing right away is let's subcontract it out, and they're cutting their own throats.
Absolutely.
Because those people they're bringing in don't care about that village where the employee did. And the disparity, like you said, we've had major fights with, well, we want to raise this person's pay based on what they deserve. Well, that one's non-union, so we could do that, but this one we can't because that's so totally unfair. They all deserve a much better raise.
We're currently, I was just talking to one of our agents, and getting back to where the municipality that you're at, Lori, we have another one over towards the Wass area where we have our health fund in, same one that your folks have, and the rate is actually cheaper. It's a composite rate, meaning it's a one-size-fits-all because it's a small group. We have 4 clerical and 5 DPW workers. But our composite rate for a much better benefit is cheaper than what the village is now going to move our members out by force because we cannot negotiate that. They are taking them out of a fund, putting them into a high deductible fund that is going to cost both the village more and it's going to cost our members tremendously more. And so then, as you mentioned before, what happens? People that have worked for that village a long time, they are going to start seeking jobs that have a better benefit or maybe a union operation someplace because they bring a lot of skills. Our municipal people are jacks of all trades.
Correct.
They wear many hats, from water to wastewater to snow plowing to, they're just wonderful. They have a lot of wonderful abilities. And if you go from, for instance, our health plan has a $200, $400 deductible, and they're going to a $5,700 deductible.
Ouch.
Most budgets can't sustain that. And it was told by one of the members that went to the board meeting that one of the board members said, well, I don't have those benefits. Why should my employees? I mean, that's the mentality out there.
You
because
can't
I
have
don't
what I
have
can't
that.
have.
Why should you have that? There's a lot of neat little things on the social media, and I saw one. There's this little girl, and she's pointing, and she said, "It's not that I'm making too much. Maybe you're not making enough." And she's pointing right at the people, and that really hits home. Why don't we say, how can I achieve what you have by lifting up everybody's boat instead of dragging it
them
down to the depths of the deep sea?
Well, and like I said, I still had this group of people I had to battle with on the board, which was, you can't do that. Act 10 says we can't negotiate. So there's nothing in Act 10 that says we have to treat these people less than individuals.
Sure.
And that we couldn't, in true faith, work with each other.
Right.
So, and we've got a pretty good relationship going out there, I think.
You do, and I've heard from our agent that gets to work with you, and he says it's smooth sailing. Everybody likes the new benefits, and the villages save money. And as you mentioned, in a small municipality, if it's $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, whatever, that's real dollars to a small municipality.
That might be able to give us the money to fix another street.
Exactly.
Or to
replace a vehicle.
Yes, which we just had to do. Skid loader. So, and like you said, in that smaller community where they're being forced to pay more health insurance premiums, their retirement's affected as well.
It is.
I don't think a lot of people realize how much they're Act 10 is affecting their retirement?
Well, immediately Act 10 said you are going to now pay 50%. 50% of your retirement. Not 5, not 10. Tell me where you go anyplace and somebody now automatically dumps a 50% increase onto that budget. So not only do they increase the retirement 50%, they've taken the ability away for those folks to negotiate health insurance. And again, we have this mentality, well, I don't have it, you're not going to have it, so we're now going to go to what's called a high deductible health savings account or health reimbursement account, which in and of themselves are not a bad thing. However, back when they came out, when they started floating those around 12, 15 years ago, I said, those are the slippery slope that'll never stop sliding. Because initially the idea was raise the deductibles, lower the premium cost. The employers would say, oh, well, we'll fund that. We'll fund that difference. And some of them did. A lot of them did. But because of the increasing costs and the ability now to not even negotiate that, what's the quickest way? They go to the bottom of the barrel and they say,
take it out.
We contributed $2,000, $3,000 per family. We're now going to take that away, and you know what? Just sucks to be them. But if they want to stay here, that's what the cost of working here is going to be. So they're literally bringing money from home to go to the job. And just like I told the agent the other day, I was just furious when I saw this village for no reason. There's no reason. If there was a cost difference, I'd say I understand that. But we're actually saving the village money, but because you have a couple of board members saying, I can't get that, why should they have that? And I wanted to write an article in the local newspaper, but my fear is that you will have all these same like-thinking people that'll say, well, what's wrong with that? I don't have that benefit. Why should these union members have that? And again, it's that mentality of saying, how can I get something like that? Give John a call at the local union hall. I can help you out with that.
But the other thing that irritated me all through the battle that we've been having since Walker got in office, they're like, well, they got these Cadillac plans. They don't understand we as union members have given up pay to get that Cadillac plan. So now they're going to come and take away the Cadillac plan. I don't see them offering to raise our pay.
Not at all. Not at all. Quite the opposite. And I think that was the biggest misnomer back when Act 10 came about. And there were two unions in general that I think legislators and the governor in particular, he batted heads with him when he was a county administrator in Milwaukee County. And so he absolutely hated that he couldn't force his will on the members of Milwaukee County. And, they probably went to arbitration, which is what the law provided for. And the reason the law for arbitration during negotiations came about was to stop strikes, to have labor peace. Wisconsin has had labor peace in the public sector for over 50 years. That's what people don't seem to understand.
And they've wiped it out.
And they have wiped it out completely. So there's a little story back when Act 10 came out, and of course we were all down there protesting, and I'm sure you were down there in the throngs of people. I mean, it was really quite exhilarating. And as Teamsters, of course, we have some very fancy trucks throughout the country. We brought our trucks and kind of encircled the Capitol with some of our
nice trucks,
nice, pretty rolling billboards. And allegedly, somebody in the governor's office made a comment that he looked out the window one day and said, "Why are Teamsters here?" He did not understand that there was more unions that represented municipal employees. It wasn't just the AFSCME or the WEACs of the world, that there was actually other unions. All trades, in fact, have some public sector contracts, and we just happen to have quite a few of them. The city of Appleton, for instance, we had 12 contracts alone in the city of Appleton, and subsequently they're all gone.
Oh, wow. And I knew you had quite a few, like in Dunn County,
sure, St.
Croix County, like where I live, and other places where we go thinking they were going to be an AFSCME member, and they were a Teamster. So you're right, it's a matter of educating people. When they start talking about, oh, it's only going to affect these teachers over here, teachers aren't the only people in the public sector.
That's right. That's right. And, in talking about teachers, and I have a couple of children that are teachers, and even when they were in college, and I love teachers, and I think it's a very, very admirable position, but knowing watching labor and watching how things were changing. And I said to my kids back in the early 2000s, and when they said, oh, geez, we're going to be teachers, I said, a very admirable profession, but you sure you want to be a teacher? Oh, yeah, Dad, that's what we want to do. And they have become teachers, and the change in educating children today, it starts at home. You have to take responsibility at home. And too many times people dump them off on the school system, and then when their child is not doing well, let's blame the teacher again.
It's the school's fault.
And truly, if anybody has children or relatives or friends that are teachers, sit down with them a minute. Sit down and ask them exactly what their duties are and the hours that they spend and the money that they bring from home, because again, our school budgets are being cut at alarming rates. And even prior to when we were able to bargain we had a lot of maintenance employees, food service, teachers' aides, all of them, and you'd sit down and do those contracts. And you're sitting across from the administrative staff and they said, we don't have any money. We do not have any money. And then there was many times, to the point where some of our members would be a little bit upset. But you can't squeeze money out of the rock. Mm-mm. And so, this has been a long time coming, and it's cascaded into an absolute catastrophe. And now you see teachers leaving at alarming levels. They're retiring early. The good teachers are now going someplace else, and it's going to be pretty unfortunate.
Or they're going across the border to a state that appreciates their teachers.
Have to tell you a quick story on that. My daughter, who started her teaching career over at St. Croix Central, and now she's over in Denmark, and she's actually taken a year hiatus because she just had a beautiful little baby girl in June. But anyway, an associate of hers from the St. Croix area called her up and said, hey, I got this job over here at one of the school districts over on the west side of the state because they lost a teacher across the river for a $27,000 gain. This teacher left a pretty good-sized school district but went across the river for a $27,000 gain.
That's a big gain.
That's a huge gain. So if I'm living on the west side of the state as you are, I'm scared to death for my children and grandchildren that are going to be in those districts, because what is going to hold people there?
They had to put a moratorium, I know, on our school district and not let anybody else retire because we were losing our teachers at such a fast rate.
Sure.
How has right-to-work legislation affected your union?
We're seeing small effects to that. A lot of people think that they can just automatically call up the union and say, oh, I'm giving you a 30-day notice and I'm not going to belong anymore. Well, that's not the fact. The fact that right to work, if you have an existing contract, is in place until the expiration of that contract, at which point then they will have the option. There's some things that are required by the members that they have to do. So we really haven't lost anybody through right to work. We've had some contracts that have come due. We've renegotiated them. We haven't lost any members through that. We pride ourselves in good representation as well as providing very good benefits and wages for our people. So we've got T-shirts made up in case it happens, but it says it's wrong not to belong. And I say, I don't care if it's a church group or your snowmobile club, you don't get anything for nothing. You can't go to your snowmobile club and say, well, I want to be a member, but I'm not going to pay a due.
I want to ride the trails, but I don't want to pay the license, right?
That's exactly right. That's so, same thing. That's our feeling with the organization also.
Some people say that unions are not able to get their message out to the public. Do you feel that unions are getting a fair voice in the media?
I do not, and only because the media, if you listen carefully, they call them shows. They're not news. They're shows. So what is a show? A show is sensationalism. Sensationalism sells, whether it's in the print media, whether it's on camera. And so we watch the silly season of campaigns coming through that, people say the darndest things just to get recognition. And to get our message out, we continue to have to do a good job with our members. We continue to preach to the membership that don't hide that you're a union member. When you're sitting out in the bar someplace and that subject comes up,
Be proud of it.
Politics and religion are two things that you shouldn't talk about, but one has a direct correlation to the other, and you should say, I am proud to be a union member. As I told you early on, I became a union member back in 1973 when that really meant something, and there was a respect factor that it's a little hard to see that nowadays, because across the board, the respect factor, whether it's in school, whether it's your family, there's a different level, and we need to get that back. We need to keep preaching the gospel. We need to have our members keep preaching the gospel. And again, I think we need to get into the schools. And it's a pendulum. I really believe we're going to have our chance at it. We can't hide from it. And people just need to continue to be preaching the message. That's really what it's about.
I think, too, it's a matter of educating each other, too. The unions are so different, but having the talking points to go back. Mm-hmm. We get bombarded with all this really propaganda from the other side. It's not facts. Mm-hmm. But my sisters were sending me letters from the editor, and I'm like, that's someone's opinion.
Right.
So we need to keep moving forward, and like you said, one of the ways to do that is education. Is there anything else that you'd like to add today, John?
Well, I think, again, the political machine, we have to get back to the fact of getting money out of politics. I think that's the number one issue that people need to express, and they need to say, let's really look at funding political activity through tax paying. Now, I know people don't like to pay any more taxes, but whether you run for local town board all the way up to the presidency, there should be a certain dollar amount, and when that dollar amount is spent, that's done. No more outside money, because it's polluting. It is absolutely polluting our political structure, and as you can see, you keep spending money on advertisements. You say it loud enough and long enough, and people pretty soon, it's name recognition. They go to the ballot box, if they go at all. They go to the ballot box and say, oh, let's see, well, that name, I've heard that a lot. That's who I vote for. That's a shame. That has to change.
We need to overturn Citizens United.
Exactly. Exactly right.
Well, that's our program for today, and my thanks to our viewing audience and to John, who made today's program possible. Thanks again for coming over.
Thank you very much.
And my thanks also to the folks behind the cameras, who not only make this show possible, but give us an outlet for our union voices.
Chippewa Valley Community Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cbctv.org.